Good morning, everybody. This is Nick with the Wireless Buffet. I'm super excited to have another session today with some amazing guests and speakers and learning about things that are not only technologically interesting, but truly make a difference in people's lives. And so with that, let me go ahead and jump into introductions. We'll start off with the gentleman on my left, Mr. Al Brown.
Hey guys, Nick, great to be here today. I'm Al Brown, CEO of SmartWAVE Technologies, and we are everything about wireless. And I am just so excited to have one of my dear friends and actually a client of ours on the phone. She's got an amazing story. It's going to be a great session here on the podcast for the Wireless Buffet, Rick Thompson.
All right, Rick, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. I might be a client, but I don't remember send you any money. So I'm Rick Thompson. I'm the executive director of a foundation called Champions Community Foundation. And one of the projects that we kicked off is Champions Place. And it's a home for young adults with physical disabilities. We think it's the only one in the country. And I'll say this many times, but SmartWAVE's been a partner of ours, and I'll tell you more about what they've done to make it possible.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, great to have you both on. You know, if you've listened to any of the past podcasts, you know, we talk a lot about the greater good and what, you know, SmartWAVE and, you know, a lot of folks in this technology space do to try to drive the greater good with broadband and access. And I think this, Rick, your story, I mean, I've just, watched a little bit of it on YouTube. It's just truly amazing. So why don't we just start there? I'd like to understand kind of what was the inspiration or the kind of the origin of why Champions Place was founded.
So Nancy and I have three kids, and two of them have a very rare disability. It's a form of muscular dystrophy. So it represents itself physically and in some other ways. And so our first child, Katie, lived to about age 4. And unfortunately, she's died, but we'll see her again. And then our third child, Matt, has the same thing. So I tell you that in that Nancy and I have been married 41 years, 37 years of it, we've had a physically disabled child in our household. So you guys probably coach your kids' teams, right? So, or you're involved in their sports. So we did the same thing. And it was buddy baseball. We did wheelchair sports. And as our kids aged out of high school, you've probably heard this many times in the disability community, everything stopped. And so you have a child that's been in high school, all of a sudden they're not going to school. All of a sudden the programs associated with high school have all stopped. And they're in your home, and you can see isolation begin, depression. So when Matt grew up, he was in wheelchair sports. So we got this idea that maybe we're supposed to continue that. So we brought 6 kids and their parents to our living room and said, hey, I think we're supposed to start this wheelchair sports ministry. And at the time it was out of our church, but we're a nonprofit today. And they said, great. I said, what do you want to call yourselves? They said, the Titans. I said, great. We're still the Titans. I wish they had called themselves the Champions because it'd make a lot more sense. But that's grown from 6 to over 100 in 100 young adults and families throughout the Atlanta area, cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, spina bifida, and quite frankly, any other flavor of physical disability that walks into the gym. And what we say is we're in the hope business. We provide community so they can build friendships. And so on a typical Saturday afternoon, a new Titan will walk in, and I'll throw him a shirt and say, welcome to the Titans. You've got 100 new friends. And for a kid that's isolated at home, that's quite meaningful.
That's huge.
So we provide community and the ability to make friendships. The parents talk in the bleachers and talk about government benefits. So it grew. So I know this is a long answer. So we did that in 2009. And around 2000, during that time, I've had meetings at my house, 2006, 2008. And I'm looking at my dining room because that's where it was. And we had dads in one room saying, what are we going to do? Our kids are getting older. They're going to leave high school. They don't want to live with us. Let's start looking around. So we started looking around Atlanta, couldn't find anything. Again, I'm going to say we are rifle shot. We serve those with physical disabilities. And if you were to take a pie of the disability population, we would be kind of that piece of this pie, right? We're small. And because of that, we kind of get lost. It's like there's probably 700, 800,000 young adults with with physical disabilities in the country. So,
and what was the option for parents? You know, if there's not a place like Champions Place, I mean, what kind of typically what are the struggles? I mean, you definitely lived in it, right?
So I can only think of three, Al, and one of them is they live at home with their parents, and that's predominantly the kids that we serve. I call them kids. They're number 35.
Adults. Yeah,
I'm old. I went on Medicare this year, so I can say that. So living with the parents, and that's limited, right? It's limiting because parents have to work. Many times, you know, these are single parents because it's tough raising a kid, and that always doesn't work out. You know, a lot of divorces. I've read articles about two young ladies in Minnesota living in a nursing home because that's where they could physically handle them. Mm-hmm. And the third is, and it's what we found, is that while there are homes in the Atlanta area and other places, typically they're geared for those with intellectual disabilities. So you'll find three cognitively challenged individuals, one physical, you know, that it's very hard for them to get around the house. Their interests are different. They're as different to one another as we are to each of them. So those are those three options. None of them are very good, really.
Well, that's kind of the big difference, right? In this disability is these young adults. I mean, they've got like Georgia Tech grad, you know, degrees and so forth, right? I mean, they're extremely. You have some extremely brilliant individuals that are in the home. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we have the gamut. We have, just as you said, we have somebody that I think went through a 5-year program and 3.5 at Georgia Tech, right? Consumer computer science. We have teachers. We have some residents that actually teach, go out and teach full-day jobs. We have some that are, their physical disability limits them, and their secondary, maybe, I wouldn't call them cognitive, but developmental issues. So our son, he works at Starbucks. He's ambassador. So you walk in, he says hi. He does it via computer and offers you pre-COVID a sample. We're almost. He greets at Marshall's. We have another young man that works at the Affleck Cancer Center, and in his wheelchair, he takes blood samples, other samples from the doctor's office down to the lab and back up, and they can measure the improvement and turnaround. We have some that work in daycare. Somebody works at Trader Joe's. We got a Corey who lives at the Champions Place. He's got his own DJ business. If you need a DJ, I got it. And he works at Goodwill, and he proudly came in last week and said, "Hey, I'm employee of the month." Nice. So yes, Al, they're with it. They're funny. They'll bust your chops. And yeah. So
I'm curious how you mentioned, 37 years, with a child with disability. How has technology changed in that time to make it either? I mean, I assume obviously easier, right? Like, what's changed in 30 plus years? That's, when you first were in your living room trying to do this to now.
Yeah. So a neighbor, and by the way, there's a lot of Al's. So Al's team donated the entire network at Champions Place, which enables some things. And he did it without hesitation. His team does it without hesitation. And to this day, we call in and, we get responses immediately. But to go back, another friend went down to Georgia Tech with me to a place called Tools for Life back in 2015. And we were looking at what could we do for our son here at Champions. And this relates, while living at home with us. And this will bridge to Champions. So we landed on Google technology. So our son could all of a sudden say, hey, Google, turn on the TV, turn on ESPN, turn on TBS, turn on lights. Call dad. So literally, he could not use a cell phone. So Nancy and I could go play 9 holes. I might get pulled off the course, but he would call us. He could communicate.
It's instant freedom for you.
Instant freedom for us. Listens to music, the kind of music, TV shows that he wants, when he wants, personal choice.
Independence,
self-reliance, right? And so the Champions Place story, then as Champions Place came in to become, vision became reality, we took that technology to Champions Place. So if you were to see a tour, you'd come into Champions Place and you'd yell out, hey, Google, turn on lights, and the family room lights go on, or hey, Google, turn on fire pit, and at night, the fire pit lights up, or turn on music. But if you go in the rooms, it's, and I got to watch this because I got one right next to me. If I say, hey, G, he's going to start talking. And I got an A over there. So anyway, you say, hey, G, open my blinds. Blinds open up. Operating the TV, phone calls, calling another room. So if you look over here, you see this is called a Google Hub Max. You see that on our counter? So Matt has one on his desk. And so we can communicate with one another. But here's where the Wi-Fi comes in. We've got incredible coverage around not only the common areas, but is it called VLAN? Is that what it's called? We have individual.
Yeah. We have some VLANs, yes, or individual networks for each individual, and that it's somewhat of an MDU, a multi-dwelling unit, right? Where you have multiple homes or residences all within one building, right?
Which is great for a number of reasons. One, when Matt says, hey, Google, open my blinds, Corey's blinds don't open, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's very reliable.
That choice just went away then versus having a choice.
Yeah, how'd that happen? Thanks, Matt, yelling down the hall. But so they have this self-reliance at Champions Place, and it's incredibly reliable. I think we've had in almost 2 years now, maybe one call, and it was a small piece of hardware, and it was flipped out like that. One's over in about 10 minutes. I'm exaggerating. He's over within a couple of hours. But so that is proven. So having a reliable, robust Wi-Fi network, not only in the common areas, but in all the different rooms and outside as well. So Champions Place is built, you got 16 people living there. So you need, obviously, common area, but you need some place to be alone. So we have screened-in porches. We have tables out back. We have a front porch, and no matter where you can go, you get a great signal, and we got coverage. And technology, to your point, Nick, it when you're disabled, it means even more to you. It's a connection for you. Corey talks to his girlfriend every day at 5 o'clock. I love to walk in on those calls. Just embarrass the heck out of them. But no, it makes a big difference. Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, the term, we do often use the term digital divide, but in this sense, it's actually a very different meaning. I mean, the division that is being able to be bridged with the technology for people with disabilities. It's amazing. It's amazing.
And for us, Rick, selfishly, it is such a rewarding, opportunity, right? For everybody that gets to be a piece of that to help out however we can, right? It's everybody coming together to move the needle just a little bit, right? However we can. And you've got some great partners, Tommy Hilfiger, right? Big partner. You want to kind of talk about that? I thought that was kind of cool, some of the things that they're doing.
I'll talk about that, but I don't want to breeze by. Al, without hesitation, you did this, but it's not just you. A lot of times you can have somebody that has a company and it's maybe they themselves have that feeling. It's Kevin down to Juan. It's your whole team. Everybody just drops it and does everything they can to support us. And but yeah, Tommy Hilfiger. So we have a couple of. I talked about Google. And Google actually is donating the technology. I want to talk a little bit more about that in a second. I have a fraternity brother I played soccer with in college, and he is the CEO of Tommy Hilfiger USA, and they donated all the furniture.
Nice.
Also, we've done a lot of testing of technology for them and beta testing of clothing. So Tommy Hilfiger adaptive, so magnetic zippers and buttons and Velcro. Google, we've done some beta testing. So they've got a joint, a beta test. I won't tell you who, but it was a jean jacket. And there was an appliance in the sleeve, and you go like that and music would start. And then you go like that and the volume would go up. And so here's somebody that's physically disabled, and we're beta testing it. Like Natalie goes, that's great, except that arm doesn't work. I need this arm, you know? And they're going, oh yeah. So a lot of beta testing going on. So
you're a bit of it. You guys have become a bit of an incubator then. That's pretty amazing. Like people are coming to test things out there.
So that's amazing that you'd use that word, because that's what we say. Champions Place is a home, and we want to replicate it. And we're helping others, and we're engaged with about 15 different entities right now that have reached out and said, we don't have this in our town, city, community, and we'd like to replicate it. Number two, it's a social hub. So you know those Titans I was talking about?
Yeah.
So we used to have parties. So we have wheelchair sports, and they can look forward to that every other Saturday. We have a game tomorrow if you guys want to come, 3:00. Nick, you're not local. Otherwise, I'd throw you in a chair. And I tell our best players to shut you down. But so it's a social hub. So we also use Champions Place. I mean, we used to have Halloween parties and open mic nights in our driveway because we had an accessible bathroom and a ramp into the house. So we can do all that now at Champions Place. So last weekend we had a cookout. We had live entertainment. We had about 40 in wheelchairs, about 100, including parents. So it's a social hub, so we can serve the folks that, these Titans that should be called champions. And then the third thing is this incubator idea. And so, yes, the clothing from Tommy Hilfiger, we gave that to the entire community, Titan community, and they all got free clothing. What we're doing next, and because of what we built together with Google and Al's team, this portfolio of smart devices that can operate a room, is we've started a new initiative called Champions Place at Home. So we are taking a core set of the technologies, and we're going to those Titans who are living at home. We can't build enough Champions Places, and we're automating their rooms. And we've done 3 pilots. And Kevin, who's 42 years old and is involved in our Titan community, lives about 3 miles from our house here in Johns Creek. And Kevin's quadriplegic. He lives in an apartment down in the basement of his parents. And we just finished setting up. We are, a buddy of mine, Paul Vaya, who's another Al Brown. He actually implemented the technology as a test to say, so number one, what technology would we put in a home? And then how would we implement it? So we are about to now go to phase 2, which is we're going to expand that throughout the Titan community. And we don't know where that could go, right? I mean, Google hears about that, and they may want to go after this market segment with such an offering, right? So, Kevin, he can now, he can't move. He's a quadriplegic. So he would say, in the middle of the night, he can call up his dad, because they have one of those devices that I just showed you in upstairs, and wake up his dad and say, hey, Dad, I need your help. And by the way, I'm going to turn the lights on for you, because he can.
That's awesome.
And Paul has figured out, hey, Google, open the door. And they got an automated thermostat.
You knew it was going to go off at one point.
So anyway, you get the point.
Yeah.
So the impact of the incubator idea is very real. Yeah,
that's awesome. Let's get a little techie. Al, I mean, let's talk about what is the infrastructure and the architecture to make Champions Place actually work? Because there's a lot of times people don't understand the behind the scenes.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff there that we can just say, Google, do this, but I don't think people understand the technology to make it work.
Well, it's the architecture approach of how we went about with Champions Place is believe it or not, there's a lot of similarities with like a high density public venue. As you can imagine, right? There's 16 residences. Each room has their own Wi-Fi radio, right? There's a Wi-Fi radio in the common area. There's a Wi-Fi radio outside. And in the world of wireless and Wi-Fi, there's only so much spectrum that's available. And the spectrum block is cut up into channels, right? And so if you have like 10 channels that don't overlap, right? It's like segmented. This channel 1, channel 2, 3, 4, 5, as it goes, right? I'll just say it. I'll make it as simplistic as possible so we don't get into the weeds. But basically what that means is because you only have so much spectrum available, eventually, if you have 10 devices, you're fine. You're not going to interfere with each other, but you add number 11 and it's going to interfere. So like in a high density public venue, you have to support a lot of users in a confined space. And you've got all these radios just broadcasting signal, right? And so there's some method to the madness with respect to how powerful you set that radio so it broadcasts that signal, right? If it's too much, you could cause interference with another AP in another room. If it's too little, maybe you can't get the right connectivity you need for the blinds to communicate to the system. So there's somewhat of an optimization process that we go through to make sure. I mean, the initial pieces of it are just having engineers on staff that understand channel planning. A lot of these networks today and Wi-Fi, they're set up so that in your typical environments, like say in my office here, or even at my home, or even in a building where I'm serving like a large area, and I don't have to split up the network to individual needs. These controlled systems have features like auto channel and auto power capabilities, right? And they'll adjust through the day, right? But once you kind of exceed that threshold of spectrum that's available, that's when you can't rely on this controller. So that's kind of the difference with SmartWAVE in our resources is the more challenging that RF or that radio frequency environment is, the greater value that we bring, because we don't rely on the manufacturer system to make the decisions for the environment that we're in. We know the technology to hard set those channels, to hard set those power settings, so that Rick, when he has a problem, so Rick's not calling me every day, basically, right? And saying, hey, Al, can you send some guys over here to help me out? Right? Because that's not, that's not a good program to run, right? And
the
if these
experience
channels
alone is not, especially given what it is, it's just a bad experience, right?
Well, look at the audience we're catering to, right? When channels change in an access point, so you've got all these things, you've got all these APs. Just think about this: if this one adjusts and this one adjusts, and there's another one here, they're all adjusting. So they're going to change channels. Every time they change channels, this guy loses connectivity. Or whatever Wi-Fi device you have is going to lose connectivity when it changes. We have an audience there that you don't want to have that continual inter. What's going on? I mean, these young adults have lived through enough strife. Whatever we can do to make it simple, that's our mission. Right. And that's what we want to do. So with respect to what's going on over at Champions Place, I mean, it's really amazing. I mean, I personally for me, I grew up with a sister, and she was mentally handicapped, but in different, she had some physical attributes and issues as well. But for her, it was a little different because, as Rick mentioned, there's programs for people with intellectual challenges, right? There's programs for them. There are locations and communities for them and activities for them. But the physical piece, I've never really thought about it, right? And I grew up with someone who was handicapped, and I never really thought about those individuals that have just a physical disability and what it must be like if you're placed into an organization that has a totally different set of challenges than you do, right?
Yeah.
And the social impact of it. I mean, it's a social program, right? That is breaking a barrier for these kids. And so it's something it's really easy to get excited about, Rick. I tell you, man, and Rick is one heck of a cheerleader. I'm telling you. I mean, Rick, when you kind of went down this road, you raised a lot of funds in doing it, right? I mean, you've had different galas and things like that. I mean, Rick, you can sell like nobody's business, right? But he always pulls out the tearjerker, and the next thing you know, people are just writing checks, sending the money, right? Make it happen.
The honest answer to that is I never really have to ask. All you have to do is introduce this special population to those that want to help, right? It's just a brokering thing, and then it just happens. But we raised $5 million to make this happen and open debt-free.
Wow.
And that was mostly individuals, some foundations, some companies, but the biggest chunk was individuals. And Al, again, at the galas, you just get up and you introduce, there'd be 35 of them at each at a table, and you just tell them about them, right? And after you're done with that, I get so we had the Dooleys there one time, right? And she made the ask, and you might have to cut this from the program. But she said, "Don't make me." She's 80 years old, but she said, "Don't make me get up on the table and take my clothes off." I'm gonna write checks today. You can decide whether to edit that or not.
That's funny.
That's awesome. Great. So I guess, you guys you've been around a while now. What's the next vision? You obviously said a lot of people are wanting to model Champions Place in other cities and other states. And you've obviously, created something amazing. What's the next step? What's the next vision for you?
Well, going back to those 3 points, the home concept, we want to replicate it. There's 2 ways to do it. And immediately we're engaging with others. And actually, I think we can have a bigger impact enabling others, because then if you get 10, 15 communities working, right, we do that. However, we also have 90 to 100, 85 Titans-ish that aren't living at Champions Place, and we need to try to help them. And then the other, as I meant, is to whatever we learn at Champions Place, we want to leverage for this community. So Champions Place at Home, that technology. We know that employment, I talked about the fact that they worked. So we're talking to partners that have core competency in this area. Could our foundation raise the money and on-ramp folks onto the employment process? And there are other areas that get into what happens when the parents aren't here, and could we staff people that have that expertise that could actually play that role for parents when they're not here. So, some of this we don't know yet.
Yeah.
But what we learn there, we want to try to replicate if we can. Yeah.
I'm curious, what did you do during COVID? Like, how did that, the technology, like what was you always had to change things, I'm assuming. Some
idiot decided to open on October 21st, 2000, was it 20 or 19? So we were just in the dip, and our boards voted, our residents voted. It was tough. It was hard. There was a lot of quarantine. There was a lot of testing, but you always come out the other side better when you go through things like that. So we did, just like everybody else,
I mean, it seems like the things you guys have learned, I mean, maybe you could write a book on all the stuff you've learned just getting this set up.
I've been told that. I'm not very good at taking
well,
notes.
Rick, are you not going to get into the franchise business?
That has been the idea. That is there
make a great impact across the nation, right?
Is there a way for this to become, it wouldn't have to be for profit, but your head goes there, right? Is there somebody that could take this and expand it? And we'd love to have that conversation. We're right in the middle of that. Actually, next month we have a strategic planning session, and these are the types of things we're trying to, blaze the path to say, where are we going to go the next 3 to 5 years, and then staff for it. Yeah. Because right now I'm the butcher, baker, candlestick maker with a couple of part-time folks that are really dedicated. And quite frankly, this can have a much bigger impact than that organization. Plus I'm on Medicare, No.
It is interesting, Al. You mentioned the MDUs, like it almost, it is basically an MDU, right? Like
it is.
If you were franchise, if you did it cookie cutter, it really, you could, if you can nail it down the right way to do it, it's just rinse and repeat. From a technology perspective, not.
Yeah. Well, technology from an operational perspective, I think we've written 25 processes, right? There's a reason this hasn't been done before.
Is it hard?
Right. But we'll get there. We'll replicate. And that's very important to us. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's just, an amazing story. Obviously you're changing lives, and obviously Al, what you guys do, in support of that, truly making a difference. So, it's got to feel good. So,
well, our partner, Rick, who also needs to get credit on this, is Ruckus CommScope. They actually donated the hardware, and it was an easy ask for me when I went to the execs and I told them what we were looking at doing. They were like, absolutely, we're happy to help. So that helped out a lot with the burden of the expense, but. Definitely want to give a shout out to those guys for sure.
Whatever we can do to thank them, we will. And if they're ever in town, or ask them to come on over, we'll introduce them to the residents and they can thank them. So, but Al, it's great Nick, thanks for this opportunity to publicly thank SmartWAVE.
Yeah, like I said, great story. And again, to the listeners, if they have any questions, you can go to championcommunityfoundation.org, obviously, to learn more. And again, just thank you for what you do. And again, Al, you too, just an amazing story. And again,
feel free to donate to Champions Place.
Yeah, for sure. Get the word. That's the beauty about the internet, and the beauty about these things is you have a much broader reach, right? You can reach people that are not in Atlanta, right? That are all over the country and all over the world, that have a passion for doing what you do as well. So it's amazing. And again, on behalf of the Wireless Buffet, we want to thank our sponsor, CommScope Ruckus, for continuing to support this. And if for other episodes, please go to Apple or Spotify to listen. Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate your time and conversation today.
Catch the wave.
See ya.